All right. Here we go. Expert Chat. Slurve. Talking with Steve from FG Metrics. Talking the Barclays. Start of the FedEx Championship. FedEx Cup, whatever it's called, where the golfers win an obscene amount of money every year. Most people don't even realize it. And yeah, it's got some good DFS action going on. Some nice tournaments in the lobby, actually. They threw another qualifier in there. I don't know if you guys noticed on DraftKings, but it's a $1,500 entry. I think it's next week. Okay. So there's qualifiers to it this week, but it's a $1,500 entry, 100K to first. It's for the Deutsche Bank, so that's an interesting tournament. I don't know if I'm going to be in it, but it's an interesting tournament anyways.
Yeah, I didn't notice yet because now that I'm allowed to actually do everything in New York, I don't need to rush. So tonight when I'm done with this, I'll go on there. I'll see what I can do, make some lineups. It'll be a nice, refreshing change from what I've had to do.
I forgot. That's right. Yeah, welcome back.
Yeah, right. So I'm excited to have that freedom right now. But and you know my favorite thing about that obscene amount of money comment is, I don't know if you remember a couple years back, it used to be an annuity for the 10 million, right?
Oh yeah.
And one of the main reasons they changed it is because like early on when Tiger won a couple, had he won like a handful of them, they ran the numbers where they'd owe him like $500 million or something in like 30 years. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, they were worried about having to owe Tiger Woods like $1 billion, so they changed it. Yeah, that's right. No, I read about that actually. Yeah, it's still 10 million, isn't it, to the winner?
Oh, it's still 10 million.
Yeah. Crazy. But I like the FedEx Cup. I like it. It kind of sucks that it coincides with football. I find every year because I struggle to find time to watch it, but that's my problem. Anyways,
especially early on.
But it's a good little event. Like it obviously doesn't get as much press as the majors, but it's always exciting. So, how was your week last week?
Well, I didn't play any DFS and enter any lineups. Okay. Betting was good. We hit the. It got cut off a little bit. We hit the Horschel top 5, top 10. I snuck in with Kisner because of that Furyk double that got Kisner into the top 10.
Yeah, nice.
So those were the couple main plays that I was involved in. Siwoo Kim was just inside that that 500 to 1 range that I was betting everyone in $1. I was so pumped. I was so pumped when I saw him. I was like, oh, he looks like a guy that's probably like 500 to 1. I definitely got him, and he was just inside of it. But
yeah, that sucks.
I had some sweat on Sunday. I had like 3 guys in the top 10, but he made it too much distance.
Yeah. I actually made I had a couple good teams in the DFS. I had a couple teams 6-6. I had one team go from like 9,000th on Friday up to like 600th, and then I had a team go from like 3,000 up to like 100th. So it was just like a couple 6-6 teams. All my guys were like between T15 and T30 though, so it was weird. I just didn't have any exposure to the top guys, but it was a pretty good week. Got Blaine Barber top 20, got Scott Langley top 20, so good odds. But let's talk about Barclays. So obviously like a super strong field. I know what I want to do as far as the top guys go, but I'm going to let you kind of start things off.
Okay.
Who are you really focusing on this week at the top?
Well, the top end guys, and I'll call it 10,000 and up. My initial read was Stenson. Out of the guys that that price point above, he was the guy that made the most sense to me. I feel comfortable paying up to 11.7. When you look at Jason Day, the normal weekly metrics that I look at to start off like this conversation and anything else that I do, he's way up there, and I didn't get that. I didn't get the gut feel on him, but then I looked at some numbers. So there's him. All the top guys. I don't have much negative to say. You could say Justin Rose, but he just won a gold medal, and we're not really factoring that into a lot of what we do. So, out of all of them, I feel like Rory's the worst. Unfortunately, it's just kind of hard to say that, but
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Brooks Koepka, and he's a guy that he's got a ninth, a fourth, a 13th, a second, and I don't know why I wouldn't want to go with him, considering if you look at that kind of track record, and this is one of the first weeks that we're putting out driving distance. We rarely put out driving distance. Usually it's accuracy will show up or strokes gained off the tee, but driving distance showed up enough for us to use it as one of our stats. So it's definitely a little different week from when we're looking at it. So it's hard for me to kind of jump off any of these guys. I think Koepka. Are you concerned about his ownership, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, ownership-wise, I'm not concerned about anyone's ownership this week, to be honest. And I think it's the same thing we've seen in majors this year. It's just going to be spread out. And I feel like leading into these big events with all these elite players, everyone's talking about ownership and I'm going to fade this guy and that guy. And no one ends up being more than like 22% owned.
Yep.
And so, I mean, my advice is if you want to play Brooks Koepka this week, play him. People will use Justin Rose and they'll use Hideki and Phil. And Koepka might be 20, maybe even 25% owned, but he's not going to be like 40% or something. So I'm fine with that. I mean, I just feel like there's no one I really want to fade based on ownership. So, I mean, look, Brooks Koepka and Hideki Matsuyama look like the best value to me, for sure. Just recent form-wise, and then Hideki's tee to green game in the last 2 weeks has been off the charts. So, I can't say anything bad about either of those two guys, really. I think the guys with length here have an advantage. I think they're going to be able to hit it out of the rough. I think they're going to be hitting short irons out of the rough and hit a lot of greens. Whereas, the shorter hitters, if they're a little bit inaccurate with their driver, they're going to struggle and they're not going to hit greens. So definitely down with the driving distance this week. That brings me to my big point is I don't know why anyone wouldn't want 100% Jason Day this week.
Okay.
If he's going to be like 20, maybe even less than 20% owned, still the best player in the world coming off a T2. He's rested. You got guys like Stetson and Rose coming back to the Olympics. And I think Henrik Stenson's a safe play. I really do. I'm not knocking Stenson, but I just feel like there's question marks with most of these top players, and I don't have any question marks with Jason Day. I feel like he's going to come in here and play well. And like I said, if he's under 20% owned for GPPs, I'll go all in on him for sure this week.
All right. So what? Well, I guess the question is, what is your concern with Stenson if you have one?
It's not really a concern. I think if I'm looking at the top players, I think Jason Day is he's just got more upside. He's got the I can blow away this field upside. Whereas, I mean, obviously Stenson's been playing as pretty much as good as anyone. Just when you're weighing the two, I still would say Jason Day is a better player. I don't know, and maybe Stenson's a little bit of burnout factor, I guess. But Stenson would be my second pick. I mean, if I'm ranking the top 6 guys, it would go Day, Stenson for me this week. I think Spieth is interesting. I know he's played these tough courses well. That being said, the inaccuracy off the tee, I think, is going to be a huge discount for him here. I just can't. It's hard for me to see Jordan Spieth winning this week. It really is. He was T76 in driving accuracy at the PGA Championship. If he's T76 this week, there's no way he's going to crack the top 10. The rough is too thick there right now.
Yeah, and it's interesting you said that because I have a couple comments about Spieth. I mean, I wrote about him in the article, but we'll get to why. But what you're saying with driving this, I played Bethpage, a good amount of times. I played it with Moose and Bobby a couple, just 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. They're starting to build some of the stands. Course is in phenomenal shape, and it was tough. I mean, if you would have told me that driving accuracy when we run our regressions wasn't going to come up as a significant factor, I would have been you're crazy because I played pretty well, and it was very, very clear in my mind. If you hit the fairway, I was in good shape. If I just missed the fairway, it was like impossible to hit a good shot. And I think what I noticed when I started looking at the numbers more is the amount that you gain by being closer.
Yeah.
There's not enough trade-off for being in the fairway, but being as far back as those back tees. Because you forget the tees that we played from. I've only played from the extreme tips one time.
Yeah.
And they're going to play at least half the tees every day from that distance. So some of these tees are just pretty far back there. So I could imagine, you can hit the fairway, you can play 3-wood, you can play an iron. You're going to have on most of these par fours 200 yards in, 240 in that range, and you're not going to score from 200 to 240
because the greens are really small there too, are they not?
That's what I was about to say. They're very small. I had a couple of people asking me on Twitter, what are the greens like, and they are not big. At best, they are average.
Yeah.
I think I've always been a little better of like an iron player, so I seem to do better at courses like that where the greens are smaller. And yeah, it's more like my home course where there's no lead into a lot of the greens. There's a lot of greens where there's rough all the way around it, and they're small. They're definitely small putting surfaces, which is why I think there's always an argument every time there's small greens. Well, does it help to be a good putter because the good putters are closer in the league, or does it hurt because the guys who are bad putters are going to have easier putts when they're putting? What we're showing is, the putting is a very big factor this week. We actually weighted it a little more, just above strokes gained tee to green, which we rarely do. I think, the greens are not that tricky, and you can't have a bad putting week because they're not that difficult overall.
Yeah, it's what do I want to say? I mean, I feel like hitting the green is always important, but I mean, obviously, I just feel like because the greens are a little bit harder to hit, because it's a longer course, I want those guys who are going to put themselves in better chances to hit a ton of greens this week. So
yeah,
obviously, the accurate guys are going to be hitting from the fairway, but the guys who are closer to the hole, to me, I definitely think a lot of these really high up tee to green game guys are going to have good weeks. Already mentioned Jason Day, but obviously a guy like Dustin could have a massive week. A little bit concerned about him coming off a break, but a guy like Bubba Watson led the field in strokes gained tee to green at the Olympics. A guy like Louis Oosthuizen is, if he's on, he's coming off a big rest. If he comes out and starts playing well, he's going to hit a ton of greens. Paul Casey, his last two starts, he's been T2 and T5 in greens and regulation. I just feel like guys like that are who I want this week. And I mean, you look at past tournaments at this course, you see guys like Graham DeLatte, Lucas Glover, obviously Dustin Johnson. These guys they don't have to be great putters. They just have to have a good putting week because the greens are pretty simple, because they're going to hit these greens more than the regular players. So those are guys I'm kind of trying to emphasize this week. That's the way I'm looking at this week, anyways.
And that's why I like Charles Schwartzel. He's a guy I mentioned.
Okay.
We have him ranked 5th overall. Obviously, one of the best ball strikers in the game. Putting is average. He's actually gotten a little better over his past few outings. And he's had a real nice year overall. In our write-up, I put him as the DFS must-play, and it's more based off of price. I didn't pick him for a win or one and done or anything like that, but I just think that he's one of the highest top-end guys for the best value at that price point. I feel like you're going to get a guy that has as good a chance to win as some of the top guys. But just to pivot off that, because I got to mention it, I'm sure we would have gotten there. $100 less, Siwoo Kim after that win last week. I mean, I couldn't imagine paying $100 less for Siwoo Kim when I can pay $8,500 for Charles Schwartzel.
Yeah, I mean, it's the salaries this week are really random. Obviously Siwoo Kim and Grillo are super expensive, but there's big names so far down the list this week. I mean, Kisner's 6,400, Berger's 6,900. If I'm gonna pay up for a guy in a GPP, and it's to get low ownership, that's why I like Paul Casey this week, because his price is probably gonna keep people off of him. There's a few other players like that for sure. So, completely agree. I mean, I'm not going to pay $8,400 for Siwoo Kim when Charles Schwartzel's sitting there. Schwartzel's definitely definitely one of the most solid values for me as far as the top guys. Definitely can't argue with that. But what else about the course can you tell us? Because this is pretty good info. Obviously having a guy who's played there a bunch of times. how wind exposed is it? Like, is it a course where, like, if it gets windy tomorrow afternoon, it could really affect it, or is it?
Yes.
Does it have to be like a hurricane to affect it?
No. There can be wind because there's an interesting amount of elevation change for where it's located in Long Island.
Okay.
It's not near the coast or anything, but the elevation is pretty extreme on a couple of the holes. I'll tell you right now, I haven't played all of the courses in the world, but I played a good amount of tour courses. The 15th hole at Bethpage is by far the hardest hole I've ever played. And it doesn't matter what tee you're playing from. I mean, you got to barely hit the fairway, and then you're hitting up 40 feet from like 170, and it's just there's a couple holes like that where it's just you can't imagine trying. You're worried about how do I get away with this hole with bogey. It's like it's very different than a lot of these courses, especially over the last few weeks where you're able to score. I mean, it's gonna be more like Voltage Roll. Obviously, it's going as designed.
Yeah.
But even there, the elevation isn't really an issue. Here, you can get some wind. I mean, when we played it, and especially in the afternoon, it's definitely more common than the morning. We played it in the afternoon a couple times. I mean, you can really get crushed by the wind. There's one or two holes that are 500, 520, par 4. A lot of those drives, in normal conditions, are going to be cutting off the corner of the dogleg. Not necessarily trees, but just the way that the rough kind of works, and there's some bunkers at the edges of these corners. And if the wind is favorable or not at all, you can do it. But if it's in your face, all of a sudden it's a very different game plan. So the front nine is pretty bland and easy in my mind, and the back nine is where you kind of just got to hold on.
Yeah, because both of the shorter par 5s are on the front too, aren't they?
Correct. Yes. And then I forget, in this event they played as a par 5. I want to say it's the
US
7th
Open.
hole. Yeah, the US Open he played as a par 4.
Right. Yeah.
Which it's a very easy par 5, to be honest. Of all the holes, it's probably by far the easiest. But the next hole is a fairly short. I think they'll probably play it anywhere from 175 to 205. It's a par 3, but it's the caddies always tell me don't play it any different. If anything, play it more. It looks way downhill. That's a hole where the wind will really mess with you because it looks like it's about a 20-foot drop. It's really only about 5 to 10 foot. It's exposed above the tree line. It's just there's some very interesting holes. It's just the course looks easier when you're standing there, but then once you're out in the middle of it, it can be terrifying.
Yeah. It's too bad they didn't play this course every year because I know just visually I forget how nice it looks too. It almost looks lengthy in some holes, and then it's got some trees and stuff. I don't know, it just looks cool from a visual standpoint. So,
and one of the things that we pointed out in the key stats was par 3 scoring this week.
Okay, yeah.
And I think that came up. I always try to figure out why that's the case. My guess is those are the easier holes. I mean, there's no par 3 where it's like 250 yards like some of these courses do. I mean, you're going to have a majority of them are going to be under 200 yards, which for pros is sometimes it's an 8-iron, and at worst it's going to be like a knockdown 6, which these are scoring clubs for pros. So there's a couple of holes where you can really get. I mean, the hardest one of them all is 17. Not so much with the length, but it's one of these greens where it's extremely wide and very, very narrow. So if you hit it the right distance, that's fine, but it's a 2-tier green as well. So the top left, it's like you're not going to make a putt if you're on the wrong tier. It's one of those types of 2 tiers where it's like you're not making a putt from one tier to the other.
That was the 17th.
Yeah, that's 17.
Yeah, no, I think that's the one I was looking at. It looked really impossible, the green. It looked skinny and.
Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful hole because the bunkering around it is just tremendous. But once you get up there, it's like 2 extremely small greens.
Yeah. It's like how do I get the ball on the green, basically?
Like we played last time, I had a good ball in there. The pin was up top, I was in the bottom. I just had to lag it up there. There was no gonna make this or just, so.
Yeah, I mean, and this is good info because I mean this is the type of week you're gonna expect. I mean it's gonna be a lot different from the last 2 courses they've seen. So, again, this is why I want guys who are gonna be able to just hit the greens, and the object of most holes is just gonna be make par this week. It's not gonna be go birdie hunting. So I think guys like Oosthuizen and guys like that and Casey are possibly in play. So definitely want guys who are trending well tee to green. But
and that's why you see, I think the courses where you got to make 20 under, you got to go 20 under par, 25 under par. You need the putter to get hot. So these guys that you know are good golfers, like they still don't put together those rounds. Like Schwartzel just doesn't go 20 deep, But at a course where, I mean, just outside the cut for Keith Stats is bogey or worse instead of birdie or better. So you need the guys that are just going to keep themselves in. It doesn't matter if they're not making birdie putts, if they're just getting on the green and two putting every time. Because I think, based on the way I saw the course and what they're talking about now, I think single digits has a good chance to win. I could see 8 or 9 under winning. I don't know how they're going to set it up the rest of the weekend, but
yeah. Yeah, I mean, Nick Waddy won here back in 2012 at -10, but second place was at -7 that week. So right around the same score wouldn't shock me either. It wouldn't even shock me if it's a little worse, like if it gets down to -7, -6. So,
oh, yeah.
It's going to play like a tough par 70, or par 71, sorry. So a tough long par 71. And it's kind of more the courses we saw at the start of the year, like a Riviera or a Torrey Pines. Something like that. So I mean, you can kind of look back on those weeks. Let's just keep going down the list here. I mean, let's talk about golfers. Who's someone else that you want to target? I mean, a guy at 6,400 who should fit this course well. Who's most people are going to be off is JB Holmes. I mean,
we can't
he's played well at Torrey Pines. He's played well at Riviera. I mean, I don't know. It really seems like this could be a week for him.
Can't go a week without trying to figure out if it should be JB Holmes week. We can't do it. And it's funny because each week I feel like the numbers are actually stacking up further against them, but you just feel like, come on, JB, like you get this done. I've had a couple people say the same thing, like we're going to be all over JB Holmes. At that price, he is by far the lowest priced guy given his world ranking, and he's ranked 21st in the world. So obviously he hasn't been playing too poorly over an extended period of time. Just finished this little run that he's had.
Yeah. He missed the cut last. I think he bogeyed the last 2 holes or something, or he double bogeyed the last 2 holes. Like it was something really stupid. Like he didn't play that bad last week, I guess is my point. And again, just it's a completely different style of golf course, different tournaments. So just something to keep in mind. I know he's someone. I'm going to play this week. I'm just going to roll the dice with him. I mean, I think if he plays well, he's got top 10 potential. So, but I mean, and again, that's the type of player I want to target. So
real quick before we get down to the lower range, I did want to comment. I'm not against Jordan Spieth this week.
Okay.
I can't, off the top of my head, it feels like no way. But I started looking at some of the numbers. They're definitely a little better. I mean, he's one of only 2 people that we have ranked in the top 10 in recent form, key stats, and what we're calling course history, which is basically all Tillinghast courses, including any times played at that page. So the similar type of courses, Baltusrol, Ridgewood, here. He hasn't been playing as poorly, and the main reason for that, and I put it in one of our write-ups, is the putter is essentially back for him. For the most part, I think he's ranked 3rd in the field in strokes gained putting over the last 12 weeks, and that was one of the concerns. It's like, Jordan, you can't have a iffy tee to green game if you're not going to putt like the best putter in the world, but the trend has been back in that direction. And if you actually look at his strokes gained tee to green over the last the 12 weeks, that same time frame, it's a respectable 33rd in the field. If you give me a guy that's going to be 30th in strokes gained tee to green, but leave the field in strokes gained putting, in my mind, I think they have a good chance to finish well. It's just, is that going to translate to this course? I'm not really certain, but I feel like I haven't been on Spieth all year, and this is the first time I really said, hey, I can get behind it. I have my reservations, but this is probably the most I've been excited about maybe playing it.
And look, I mean, it's like I said, the top players I feel like have a lot of question marks this week. I like Jason Day. I mean, I feel like obviously he's going to be able to hit it out of the rough. He's going to be able to hit it long off the tee, obviously, and he can putt just as well as anyone in the field. I don't mind Stenson. You can't ignore the recent form. The other guy I would be interested, though, it is Jordan Spieth. I mean, he plays tough golf course as well, and I mean the driving accuracy and stuff. Obviously, I'm not going to go all in on him or anything like that, but it's like you said. I mean, if his putter gets going, he can overcome that, and he's shown he can. And I just trust him to get his putter going more than I trust Rory McIlroy to all of a sudden turn his game around and his mindset around and find a new putting stroke for the 4th time this year. So I'm going to have a little bit of Jordan Spieth GPP. I'm still going heavy on Jason Day, but as far as the top players go, Spieth is a guy I could get behind a little bit this week. I do feel like it's not necessarily a bad setup for him. I just don't feel like he's going to win.
No, that's fair. I mean, there's the 2 main things I'm looking at are we got him 12th in bogey or worse our data, so we bogeyed almost 6% less than the fields around him, and the scrambling, he's, which kind of goes hand in hand with that. He's 8th, and he's scrambling, getting up and down 12.2% more than who he's played against. So that obviously shows the putter's getting in there because he's making those 5 to 10 footers.
When Brandt Snedeker was T2 here in 2012, he was like 59th in greens and regulation against the field. He just putted so well and played. Yeah. Jordan Spieth can do the same thing. There's no question. So I don't hate it at all. Like I said, I don't love any of the top players except Jason Day, but Spieth's the guy for GPPs. Totally get behind.
We have Jason Day ranked 3rd, so
yeah,
he's 3rd in recent form, 2nd in key stats, and 2nd in that, like I said, course history rank. I mean, he's 5 Killinghouse courses, he's averaging 88.8 DraftKings points.
Yeah.
So it all lines up. It's only him and Steve that are in the top 10. He's the only person in the top 5 of all 3 categories.
Okay. Fair enough.
So I think we spent a little more time going on the top end guys there, but I feel in this type of field, there's more top end guys to talk about. Normally every week it's like, all right, well it's Patrick Reed and one other guy. Like, do you like him or not? Okay, next. So.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean for sure. This is where you have to make a lot of decisions this week. I mean, you can only play 1 or 2 of these guys. So I mean, if you get on the right one, it's probably going to make your week because those tournaments traditionally been won by top players, by elite guys. So I kind of expect it'll be the same this week. Yeah. Any love for Phil? Any love for Phil here quickly or?
There is. It's not data founded. It's just more like, I know he loves it here. The first U.S. Open, when I started doing that trip every year, was 09 at Bethpage. So, I got to watch him.
Yeah.
Just as a guy that lives in this area, every time an event comes to New York, New Jersey, like you hear about Phil's love, and it is fun. So I'm a little more permissive than others. He's been playing really well. Like I just nothing around all of these guys from say 9,000 and up. There's nothing that really jumps off the page and excites me because they're all the top players in the world. But there's nothing bad about any of the numbers that I'm seeing for Phil. 4 or 5 cuts, 5 of 7 on these types of courses. He's basically 30th in every recent form key stats course history. The points gained against Price is positive. It's 10.67. For someone at 9,700, that's a pretty good return if you've been playing them, consistently.
Yeah.
So, in terms of other people at that price, I would take him over Hideki. I'm probably gonna be late for the party on Hideki because obviously he's played well his last couple outings, and our numbers are showing a range that keep him weighted down a little bit. But I probably like Phil the most in that mid to upper 9,000 range.
Here's my prediction on Phil, and I hope this comes true. I don't hate him this week at all. I just don't feel like this course, like if this was like 5 years ago, I think this would be great because I just feel like Phil's probably lost a little bit of length out of the rough. Again, he's like 47. I just don't feel like this is the type of course. Again, I mean, we've seen him struggle at the U.S. Open the last couple of years. I don't feel like this is the course he's going to win at. I think next week at TPC Boston, where he can be super aggressive and the course is easier, I think Phil Mickelson's going to win next week. That's my prediction. I don't hate him this week, but I think next week is the week you want to use him. I like Ricky Fowler this week.
Okay.
He was not that bad last week. I didn't quite realize it until I went back and checked. But first in driving distance, P8 in greens and regulation, wasn't that bad at the Olympics either. He just his short game at putting is just lacking confidence. But as we already mentioned, you don't have to be like a supremely good putter here to win. So Yeah, sorry, Eric. I mean, like, I talked myself into it after kind of going light on Ricky the last few month or so. I think I'm back on it. Like, I think I can get back on the train here.
Well, yeah,
It just reminds me so much of last year when, right before the playoffs, right before the players, sorry, he was in this funk, and then he finally had a couple good weeks, just tee to green, and then he just popped. So, I don't know. Maybe he does that here.
You know, I can get behind that because I think ownership's going to be slightly down on him relative to what it might normally be at 9,300. But, you know, with a guy like Ricky, I mean, I'm looking, in terms of playing these types of, like, in terms of Ridgewood, Bethpage, Baltusrol, like, he's played pretty well in these events on these types of courses. He always seems to play, it seems, a little better in the higher end events. And one of the things that I look at, I always talk about, like, the three recent stats course history. So if there's a guy that I'm not really convinced on, that because of the recent form numbers aren't great over a longer stretch of time, I'll look at the key stats, because in my mind that gives me the ability to say, well, if there's going to be a time, it might be this course because the stats are lining up for what he's been doing well. And you look at Ricky Fowler, we have him ranked 43rd in recent form, which I don't think anyone's going to argue with, but he's 21st in key stats. So even though he's been playing, relatively poorly, at ranked 21st in this type of field in key stats, it shows that things may be lining up a little better. That's one of the things that will kind of help me decide on someone, maybe jump on them before they've shown anything.
Yeah. He drove it really well last week. Like first in driving distance, he was hitting it well off the tee. So he does that again here. I mean, he's going to be set up. So it's just I think he's an interesting play. I'm gonna use him. Like I said, I'm gonna use him and Bubba over Phil a little bit this week. But it's an interesting range because I think Phil, Ricky, and Bubba are all good tournament swerves, kind of off those popular guys. So yeah, it's an interesting range for sure. Who else do we need to touch on? I mean, where does Daniel Berger rank for you guys? Because he's just so obviously a good value this week. I mean, is he someone that really pops up for you guys?
He's got to be the highest owned player this week, right?
Yeah, that's what I've been telling people. I mean,
we have him ranked 21st.
Yeah.
And he's the second value in PGA average. He's averaging 38.87 points more than someone priced at 6,900, and that's over four events.
Yeah.
So, I mean, listen, I feel like if you I feel like you have to stay away from him in GPP, because if he does have a bad week and miss the cut, you are going to be so far ahead of everyone. I don't mind getting after him in cash because you're going to save a ton of room to pad it up, but, I mean, what are your feelings on that? I mean, unless you really think Daniel Berger can go out there and win your top five, and you feel that strong about it, like you would, like with a Jason Day or these guys. What are your thoughts on a guy that might be 30% owned this week?
Oh, I mean, I'm completely fine fading him. It's just the depth of the field, right? Like I was telling people earlier. I mean, people are like, oh, should I play Kevin Na this week? I'm like, why? Like, if Kevin Na has even like a 5% chance of withdrawing because his wife's gonna have a kid, why on earth wouldn't you just play Russell Knox? Like, Russell Knox is just as good a player. He just won a tournament. Like, if anything, he might actually be a better player than Kevin Na. You could play Luke Donald too. You could play Russell Henley. Like, there's comparable plays all over the place this week. I kind of feel the same way about Berger. Maybe not as strongly, but like Billy Horschel at 6,700, even Jason Duffner at 66. Like, Horschel played really well last week. Like, just all facets of the game too. He's kind of a form guy. I mean, we saw him get hot at this time 2 years ago. I like Billy Horschel a lot this week. I mean, I'd much rather play him at 15% than Berger at 30. So I think even maybe Tony Finau is interesting. And the guy I really like, who's going to be like 2% on, Kyle Stanley. Great tee to green game player. Putted well last week, which was huge for him. He's very underrated when he's on. I mean, he can be inconsistent, but like when he's in form, he can play these longer type of courses well. Just about won at Torrey Pines one year. He's a guy I'm betting top 20 this week. He's got good odds. I just like him from DFS for GPPs because he'll be 1% owned, and I think he can really top 10 this event if he plays well. So
I haven't looked into much on him. I'll dig in a second. I just want to see. I want to touch on one thing, and then jump back on him.
Yeah, for sure.
That's very interesting. Horschel won in 2014, the FedEx Cup. So one thing I think I'm off of Horschel this week, even though I was obsessed with him last week, and I will be the rest of the way. He missed the cut in 2014 when he won. And what I'm looking at Baltusrol, Ridgewood, Wingfoot, the three Tillinghast courses, very similar profile. He's missed the cut in all of them.
Interesting.
82nd in Wingfoot back in 06, who cares? But 99th in Ridgewood, 79th this year at Baltusrol. So that's the only thing that gives me a little pause. It's just I look at that, and then I look at where is he? If you look at the key stats for him this week, and we actually have him ranked down after having him ranked pretty high last week. He's 78th in the field in key stats. And I guess technically he made the cut at Baltusrol, but
yeah, it's like that last time.
Yeah. So that's the only thing I do love him, but I will get into Kyle Stanley because I haven't looked at him at all. So if you're interested, I'm definitely excited about taking a dive.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, again, I just look at Lucas Glover and Graham DeLaet, and I'm like, if those guys are top fiving and winning like events on this course, Kyle Stanley is like the U.S. version of Graham DeLaet, basically. I mean, he cannot putt or anything, but like he has got he's a beautiful ball striker. You just watch his swing, it's just pure power. It's just like DeLaet, and I mean, he's gonna be able to hit a ton of greens, and he's putting even decently. I mean, I can see him being in the mix, and like it's interesting. He's an underrated player. I think people probably don't know that much about him, but he's been in good form. So he's someone I'm completely willing to take a risk on this week, and he'll be like 2% because really he should be like 5,700 in this field, but he's 6,700 for some reason. So no one's going to use him. So
I can make the case for and against, which is why I like playing with numbers.
Yeah, for sure.
So for Stanley, I mean, look at his last two outings. Obviously, 2 top 25s. He is ranked 18th in trend score, which takes into account finishes, the key stats, how they've been trending. So he's up there in terms of at least trending in the right direction. He actually has made 5 of 8 cuts, even though they haven't been higher finishes. If you look at his R data, he's not really popping anywhere. That's only one of my concerns. That plus, he's ranked second to last in the field in strokes gained putting on bank grass. So I mean, if it was one of those things like I'm going to talk about Hudson Swafford in a little bit. He's a guy that he putts better on strokes. So I'm looking for those lower price guys that actually have a little edge on bank grass. So that's the only thing. If you kind of gave me that, I could say, all right, he's trending a little better. He doesn't putt great, but he favors at least this surface. I mean, listen, I don't mind, getting behind him. I think 6,700 is a little much for the price, but I'd say I find some value in going top 20, like you're saying, on an actual bet.
Yeah, I like him better from a betting perspective. He's like double digits for top 20, but I don't know. He has been trending better strokes gained putting his last 2 times out. Like he was like 29th in strokes gained putting last week. So the putter's working a little bit better for him right now. So again, I just come back to the fact I just can't. If I see Lucas Glover and Graham DeLaet playing well at this course, I'm just like, well, Kyle Stanley can play well here too. So it's a bit of a shot in the dark, but like for a 1% owned guy, someone I'm willing to take a risk on this week. He is priced above his pay grade this week. Like, he should not be that high, but again, you're getting him like 1% because of this.
Yeah, it's interesting because this week, when you look at the P gap, even he is technically positive, but again, when you take the best players, because technically they're the top players for all year.
Yeah.
They're all going to outperform an average price range. But even though it's positive, it's 95th in the field. So pretty much everyone is positive.
Yeah.
But trying to look through. I can't get behind Jim Furyk, even though he's playing so phenomenally well.
It's hard with the length. Like I just don't want to roster him mainly because of that. I just feel like it's going to be hard for him to. I just don't see the upside. I guess I don't know.
But yeah, I mean he's 5 of 6 on Tillinghast courses, but two of them were Bethpage, and those were his first two starts. One of them was the cut. So, I can't keep it going. You mentioned Russell Knox earlier. I'm all in on Russell Knox at that price.
Yeah.
We technically have Kevin Na ranked higher, but in terms of a feel, Kevin Na, again, it's one of those things where it's the opposite, where his recent form is 4th, but his key stats are 49th. That's the largest discrepancy we have for someone ranked, say, in the top, 30 in key stats. Him and Ryan Moore is another person that has a huge gap there. But you look at where do you go? But yeah, you get what I'm saying. It's kind of that opposite of key stats just not working out as well. Let's see. What are your thoughts? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I told you I was going to jump on to our boy Hudson Swafford.
Oh yeah.
How are you feeling there?
Yeah, I mean, someone else was asking me about him today, and look, like I said, I'll probably throw some JB Holmes in for GPPs, but like if you're rolling down here for cash game purposes, I mean, Hudson Swafford's made like what? 10 cuts in a row. Like it's more than 10 cuts in a row now. So I just ride him until he misses the cut. I mean, you might as well just put him in a cash game lineup. For GPPs, probably like I said, JB Holmes to me has more upside. Maybe even like Webb Simpson has a little bit more upside for me. Maybe even like a guy like Garrigus has more upside. But for cash games, yeah, just put in Hudson Swafford until he misses the cut. Like it's that simple. I mean.
Let's talk about the quality of the field that we're in, and we have him ranked 4th in key stats. So it doesn't bother me that he's only ranked 33rd in our recent form metric because, listen, he's not top 5 like, 20, every week like 20 of these guys are. So that's a safe area for me. But to put him up against the top players in the world and say this week what we're saying are the key stats, he's ranked 4th at 6,200. I'll take it. He's ranked 9th in points gained against price, averaging 28.3 points more than someone's price at 6,200. The value rank is 3rd. In our time frame, it's 6 straight cuts. But I know it's like 10 or 11 straight. I can't really say much else about it, but I can jump on to Garrigus, who you also mentioned.
Yeah.
He's 3rd in PGA. 35 points more than someone priced at 5,700. He's a guy at 5,700. How do you not, get involved there? The key stats aren't as ideal, but at 5,700, that's a shot you take.
Yeah, I mean, another guy who just tee to green has been phenomenal the last 2 months. Like hits it big off the tee. Look, I mean, I don't really have anything bad to say about Garrigus. I mean, it's a stronger field, so I'm not expecting him to like win or something. But again, at 5,700, I mean, sign me up. And I think Swafford's a good play. I mean, he hits it big off the tee too. He's going to be able to handle the rough a little bit better. So
that was the thing about Swafford was of the lower priced guys in terms of looking at some of that R data. He's averaging it, almost 16 yards further than the fields he's played against. Yeah. His average proximity is almost 4 feet closer than some of the fields. The approach and the strokes gained tee to green. The only issue you can kind of be concerned with is his strokes gained around the green is a little iffy. That's not his strong suit. It's not really chipping. So other than that, he seems to work out for that price.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much what I was telling people earlier. So, but yeah, it's a weird week because you're gonna see guys like a William McGirt down here possibly have a good week too. But for them to have a good week, they really have to be on top of the putter and they have to hit fairways. I just feel like Swafford could have a bad week with the putter and still work out. So, I mean, for cash game, I think you're better off with those type of players. Doesn't mean you just have to play like long hitters, but for me, like you said, I think the stats kind of lean that this week. So we're talking about Garrigus. I don't hate Roberto Castro down there either.
They go hand in hand. Yeah, he's right there.
Yeah. Minus 13 over his last 3 rounds last week. led the field in accuracy. Which again, I mean, he's not a big hitter, but if he's gonna hit every fairway, that's gonna be an advantage. He was 24th year back in 2012, so I just like Roberto Castro because I know how talented he is, and he's been good. He's been really good. So yeah.
There's a guy that's a little befuddling to me because the argument says if you're not going to play Kevin Na, then you're not going to play Jim Furyk.
Yeah.
Then why are you going to play Steve Stricker? Because it's kind of the same idea, but he's had some really strong success on these types of courses. I know we're going back a couple of years and he's a little different player, but he hasn't missed a cut in the last 10 years on a Fillinghast course. 6th at Winged Foot, 19th and 19th at Ridgewood, 23rd and 54th at Bethpage. So kind of average. But for 7,100, if you told me he's going to finish somewhere in the top 20, 30, like, especially in a cash lineup, I don't feel bad. 3rd at Ridgewood.
Yeah.
I just, it's kind of the same thing. Like, well, if you can live with the way Steve Stricker plays, why don't you go with Furyk, who's been playing even better? I just don't know. It's just the rankings have him, up actually 9th overall for us. So I kind of have pause, but I just don't know if I should believe it or not.
Stricker's weird. He does handle these longer courses well. Like, I mean, Furyk does too, kind of, but it's 7,100 versus 8,600 too, right? So
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. It's a tough week because the prices are just so random. I mean, it's hard to kind of pick and choose, but definitely can't hate Stricker for cash games. Obviously making a lot of cuts, so that's good. Yeah,
you're totally right. Furyk was more than mine. So the price point came up because I saw Na, and I was like, well, Na and him are right kind of next to each other in terms of our ranking. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's a no-brainer. You're gonna have that argument. Furyk price.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Johnson Wagner's another guy, actually, we should maybe talk about under 6K. T5 in his last 2 finishes. And he won some event here, like in 2001, like an amateur event. Like, he's played this course a ton. A Bethpage Black, that is. So, I don't know if most people know that, but, like, he's got some local ties. So, like, 5,800, I mean, I'll just play him just for the narrative, quite frankly, and the recent form. So, that's another guy like GPPs. I might even consider him in cash games, but yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if he's popping up for you guys or not stat-wise, but I just thought I'd throw that out there. Like, Johnson Wagner knows this course very well, so, and he's playing well, so.
If that's what you got and you like him, I can't really add anything to support it, so I'll let you go with it.
Fair enough.
But in that price range, a guy that you've been loving recently, who does pop up for us, is Blaine Barber. He's still there. Obviously, it's a different type of field, but 37th in recent form, but key stats 11. So we're looking at that. We have him ranked 43rd overall. No one priced less is ranked higher, if that's how I can word that. 15th in P-gap, 11th in our value stat, 37th in our trend. But if you look at some of his key stats and where he's really excelling is, stroke gain putting, obviously putting extremely well. The par 3 scoring, he's in the top 20 in the field. Might even be top 10 actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Par 4 scoring, he's not in the top 20, but he's averaging under par relative to the field. So he's kind of he's not like in the top 20 of all these things, but he's in like the top 40 of most of the key stats. Off the tee is, he still needs to keep striking it well, but the putting, he lights it up. Obviously, we're saying it's the other way around this week, but he's one of those guys that I don't mind at 5,600. You getting a piece of.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, like, obviously he's played well the last couple weeks. He's played surprisingly well at some of these other courses that are a bit longer. Like, he shot like 65 at Riviera a couple of years ago, so he can handle it. It's like a Roberto Castro or a Jim Furyk. I mean, maybe he doesn't have the upside of winning, but I mean, like, a top 10 or a top 20. I mean, he definitely grinded out here. So and that's quite frankly the type of player you're going to want this week, anyways. Not going to be a ton of birdies, so.
No, and a guy that I think this makes a ton of sense. What I'm looking at here, that is at the same price that I'm definitely going to probably spend a lot of, because when I like him, I generally play him a lot. Is John Senden.
Okay.
So the form isn't there. 88th in form, 58th in key stats, so a little better than average. But fourth in again what I keep calling our course history.
Yeah.
You look at these types of courses, and he's got a 31st in 2008 at Ridgewood, a 15th at Ridgewood, a 19th at Bethpage in 2012, a 22nd at Ridgewood, an 18th at Baltusrol. So, he loves his Hilling House courses. This is definitely like, a similar course to say like Valspar, where he always plays well down in Tampa. When I see Senden pop up at a specific course profile, I like to play him. So the form really isn't there, but much better key stats and form, and this is the type of course that he seems to play well at.
Yeah. Senden was another guy. I know I was talking earlier about this range, but that makes a ton of sense. I mean, he's just a quality player. I mean, he's been playing pretty well most of the year. So, his ball striking's on. He's going to hit a lot of fairways, a lot of greens. So kind of throw him and Blaine Barber in the mix there. Sean Stephanie at 5,500's played well last few weeks. I don't hate that as a play either. So I'd probably kind of throw those three guys out there: Barber, Stephanie, Senden. I like all three of those guys for sure. Stephanie hits it a little further, but those other two guys probably a little bit better
Stephanie,
all around.
Yeah, we have Stephanie right next to Barber. So
okay.
I guess I lied then, because technically he's $100 cheaper and he's one spot above. So, but both are next to each other there. Yeah, I could definitely see myself making a team with like 2 out of those 3, if not 3 out of those 3, and then really going superstars and scrubs.
I mean, I think for GPPs, it's definitely the optimal play this week. I mean, it's just such a deep field, and these guys at the bottom are good. I mean, some of them have been playing really well lately, so makes a ton of sense to do that, I think.
Another guy kind of in that same range in terms of our rankings. What else do I got there? If you look at Liam McGirt, I think disappointed everyone, $2,000 more or less time out. 10th at Bethpage in 2012, 5th at Ridgewood in 2014, 10th at Baltusrol this year. So Baltusrol this year, obviously a little more form, really on form at that time. But obviously the profile's done well. The form is a little off of the left, 2 weeks now or so. If we look at his event by event, I mean, not terrible. I mean, he's played well in these big events, oddly enough. I mean, he played 7th at WGC, won a couple weeks before that. PGA was 10th, 4th finished last week at Wyndham, but kind of says to me, at 6,100, maybe this is another guy, just the type of course. Because listen, William McGirt is not a career high-end player, so that's what when I notice these guys that aren't, top-end guys that have extremely strong course histories or course profiles, I get a little more excited about them. I mean, listen, if every week you said, oh, well, Jason Day's got a really strong course history here, he's got 5 majors. Well, yeah, of course, but William McGirt's making, 95% of his money, like, in 4 events. So if it's a course that you see every year that they're finishing, the top 10, top 15, that type of course, same thing with sending, that's the time when I jump on the whole course history narrative.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I agree. I mean, I think McGirt, he just seems to handle these longer, tougher par 4s pretty well, too. I mean, I think stat-wise, like the par 4 scoring, it just seems to be a range he handles well. I mean, he's played well all year. I definitely like him for that price. I mean, I kind of brought him up earlier, but I mean, like, I think he'll definitely bounce back this week. He hasn't missed many cuts in a row at all this year. I think the playoffs, you could see him, have a decent playoff. So I mean, definitely the guy at 6,100 I like. We mentioned Swafford, who I don't hate either. I would say maybe McGirt has a bit more upside this week, but I think those are the 2 guys I would just target. I mean, they've both been making cuts. they both played tougher courses pretty well this year. I mean, yeah, makes a ton of sense to me.
I think a guy in the chat literally just asked about Johnson Wagner.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I'm going to play the Johnson Wagner narrative. I mean, pull up the chat here, see if I missed anything. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously he knows the course really well. Like I said, I think he won an amateur event back here in 2001 or something. But I like it. I mean, he's playing well. I mean, he's kind of a streaky player in the first place. So, you know, stat-wise, I don't know. I haven't like looked up the stats necessarily for him. I'm just going off recent form and the fact he knows the course, and it's really a bit of a narrative thing. Maybe that works against him, but maybe that works for him. I just feel like he's coming in here with confidence. Why not? You know, why not play him? There's a lot of question marks down there under 6K, so I'll sprinkle a little bit of them in. Like I think it's a decent price. And yeah. I mean, he's played this course a ton. That's what I've heard too. So definitely, I'll play the narrative with him.
So I got I think I got a lineup that I'm gonna play some GPPs here. I'm gonna throw it off you.
Okay.
Let's play Day, Stenson, both of them. Paul Casey, like what we're selling there, and then Swafford, McGirt, and Sendon. And you're at 49,800. And I think you got enough high-end play, but enough low-end ownership for, you know.
Yeah.
To get involved there. I definitely see more than I'm used to playing the Stars and Scrubs working out this week. I'm usually more of a balanced lineup kind of guy. So I definitely see that working a little more this week.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I like it. I'm trying to pair at least a couple of those big guys and then go from there. Like, I feel like at least 3 or 4 of these guys under 6K are going to have good weeks. So, like, top 30 kind of weeks at least. So I could probably see even a couple of them surprise in the top 10. So I like it. I mean, I even feel like this isn't even a bad cash game, to be honest. Like, you're just going to have to – for cash games, the salaries are pretty soft. I mean, the field's deep. You're going to have to nail the top guys, unfortunately, because you're going to need those big points. So, but yeah.
Brad on the chat there. That's funny asking. Moose was a lot of fun to play with. He strikes the ball really well. He's got like a tight little draw, but oddly enough, he just kept missing the fairway by like 3-4 feet, and it was just, you know, the approach game was kind of iffy. It was more like he drove it well, but not well enough. Like if you gave him like 5 more feet on each side of the fairway, he probably would have scored well. But you know, he's a real fun guy. Likes to kind of just enjoy, you know, being out there. I would definitely play with him again. I got an open invite to go play Hazeltine, so if I ever find a reason to really go out there, I'm going to play with. That's funny. I mean, listen, I feel like people joke on Twitter, oh, yeah, well, we'll play together, all the golf guys, and it actually happened with me and Moose, so it's kind of
that's funny.
But, so.
You guys live in a good area for golf courses. That's pretty awesome that you guys actually get to play courses like that, played black. So. Yeah,
no, it's definitely. I mean, listen, it's the best value. We played. I didn't even realize we played. It was like the last tee time of the day. It was like a 4:15 tee time, and because I'm in state, it's $30. I want to say $34. If you're out of state and it's normal time, it's $150. And even that's not too bad. But you know, the 30th ranked course in the world.
Exactly.
For $30, we played 8. We got all 18 in. So.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not used to having us get to 9:30 or get to our hour and like be done. But I guess I kind of like. I mean, anything else specifically you want to go over? I mean, you know, it's fun when you have the top players in the world because you have more to kind of be excited about. It's a brand new event. Brand new like start to everything. So.
Yeah. And I mean, they're just playing an interesting course too, right? Like, so it almost feels like a bit of a major week. Obviously, it's not, but it's it's like I said, the FedEx playoffs are kind of cool. I think it's a good format. So it just adds a level of intrigue. So I think it's going to be a cool week. Cuts. I mean, obviously for DFS purposes, you're really going to need 6 of 6 through because the field's down to 120, so I mean, only 50 people are going to get cut. Yeah, should be interesting. Like I said, I expect spread out ownership. I think it's just basically pick your players and don't worry too much about it this week. That's pretty much what I'd say for GPPs.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to... It's going to be one of those weeks where I feel like a little more luck. I mean, listen, it's always a good amount of luck when you win a GPP. But, yeah, this week, you know, you're going to have to get 16.
It's going to come down to you're going to have to nail the top 2 players, and then, you know, whoever gets, it's like you said, whoever gets lucky with those value picks down in the 6K range. Like, someone like Kyle Stanley or, like, you know, Aaron Baddeley is probably going to be, like, T8, and it's going to be a big play. But, yeah, it's just the way it is with the softer salaries sometimes. But that's why, like I said, this week, don't worry about ownership, in my opinion anyways. You just go with the players you like, and, yeah.
Any, before we jump off, any last minute, you know, bets? I feel like that was one of the things we added recently.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I like Kyle Stanley, top 20, top 10. I like Roberto Castro for the same. There's a couple longer shot guys. At the same time, I'm really not looking to bet like a lot of longer shot guys this week, just because I feel like this event's usually won by a really good player. So I got a little bit of money on Bubba, a little bit on Ricky, kind of the Ryder Cup narrative there, I guess. Got a little bit on Paul Casey and Billy Horschel. Bit longer odds, but I feel like guys who could come through in an event like this. I think Jason Day is going to win, if you ask me right now, but those are the guys I'm betting.
I mean, I think I'm starting to creep up a little more on Paul Casey. I see him 6.5 to 1 to top 10. I don't mind those odds. You know, maybe I'll throw a couple dollars more on it. You know, I'll probably have some action on Hudson Swaber to top 10. He's 14 to 1. So anytime you get double digits on top 10 for guys that you like, but yeah, Stanley 22 to 1 on the top 10.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just playing him. I mean, I think he's trending well. I think the odds make sense. It's like I said. I think this is a course where the bad putters can get even out, sort of thing. So we'll see how that works out. If he shoots 80 on Monday, then or on Thursday. I mean, I'll just stay off Twitter for the weekend.
This does. You know, if I'm going to close my eyes and say, who do I see leading, you know, at the end of the day tomorrow? It does feel like a -5 Paul Casey.
Yeah.
You know, I can definitely see first round leader Paul Casey.
Well, I like that. And the other guy I have money on first round leader is JB Holmes, because he goes out early.
Yeah.
And he sometimes he'll just get off to a good start in a tournament like this. So that's kind of my big first round leader bet is JB Holmes. But I like Paul Casey for the same idea of a guy who's just good tee to green and could grind out like a 66 or something like that tomorrow. So yeah, I like that.
So that's it. I think.
Yeah, I think we're good here. You gonna go out and watch?
I will not be.
No.
I would have normally, but I am getting married next weekend, so we have some last minute.
You're getting married this weekend?
No, next weekend.
Right. Next weekend.
So it's like the final prep this weekend.
Yeah. No, I got you there. Don't worry. Yeah, so. You're not allowed to do golf stuff for the next week and a half. I got it. Yeah.
Well, again, I've been making the joke. I forget if I made it last week. I'm the first guy that I know of that's excited to get married so I can start playing golf again. Because this is the least amount of golf that I've played in years. I've maybe played like 4 times in the last I don't know how many months. I'm used to playing like once or twice a week. So I just know that we've been so busy that as soon as I'm done, I can go back to like beautiful fall, you know, play some golf. So that's the one thing I'm looking forward to about the wedding is getting
nice.
Golf afterwards. I might play Newport National on Saturday of the wedding. I got the tee time. I just don't have anyone else up there, so I'm trying to figure out who to bring in. But
nice.
Other than that, you know, good luck.
Well, congrats, and hopefully you survive your week. And like I always say at the end, go check out Steve on FG Metrics, at FG Metrics on Twitter. I'm at the Fantasy Grind on Twitter. FantasyGolfMetrics.com, and have a good week, guys. We'll talk to you again next week.
Take it easy, guys.